So hello and welcome back yet again to another adventure in Pandaria with Beryl this week. And this week we are going to be exploring the western side of the Kun Lai Summit. Now, the Kun Lai Summit is a big and very busy place, and it is arguably the coldest region in all of Pandaria because it is a very mountainous and snowy region, at least through most of it. Now, normally you start your adventures in Pandaria on the eastern side. We'll be looking at that next week. I figured since we were coming over from the west anyway, we'd just start here at the Ox Gate, which leads you up into Winter's Blossom, which is a Shadowpan garrison that is guarding the Ox Gate, which is the only actually opening into Kun Lai Basin that is maintained, other than the little area that you can get in through the Binan village, which is over in the east. Now, if you take your either feet or mount, as I am doing right now, and you fly up the hill from Winter's Blossom, you come upon the Shadowpan Monastery, which was actually the second announced dungeon in the Pandaren expansion, which I did not know. And reading from the dungeon journal, it says, "War has spread across Pandaria, and the destructive conflict between the Horde and Alliance has led to turmoil in the majestic Shadowpan Monastery. There, three malevolent entities, the Shah of Violence, the Shah of Hatred, and the Shah of Anger, have erupted from their prisons. Although the Shah of Anger fled the secluded monastery completely, the remaining Shah have begun wreaking havoc on this site's brave Shadowpan defenders." Now, the Horde came here, obviously, and so did the Alliance. The Alliance showed up here seeking the Divine Bell, and from the Shadowpan Monastery, they actually were directed down into the Ruins of Corn. Or maybe it's Corun. And in the ruins is where the Divine Bell was actually hidden before it was taken by the Alliance, who were trying to keep it out of the War Chief Hellscream's hands. And I took a break during the end of Pandaria. You guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but I didn't actually do all of this. So to me, this little area, the ruins of Corun, or Corn, or however you say it, are really cool because they're a place that I didn't see, at least in its first iteration. And they're a really neat looking ruin, honestly. They have some really cool torches that are kind of a purpley color. And they're just sort of hanging out here on the edge of the ocean. You got a little bunny jumping around, because why not? I get very distracted by things very easily, and sometimes the art in WoW just stops me in my tracks. But I was really taken with the torches. They're kind of purple and green and pink, and I kind of want that fire effect on something. I don't know what, but I would like it on something. But yeah, I came in here. Now, coming in at max level these days, this doesn't really bother you, but I'm sure back in Pandaria and at level, these floor tiles were probably a huge pain in the rear end. Because they zap you, they throw spears at you, but you can eventually fight your way through and head downstairs to a very, very beautiful portrait that's on the wall down here. I was actually really impressed with it. Also, if you hear terrible noises in the background, don't worry, that's just my cat who has decided to get the zoomies while I sit down and record this. But yeah, the fire effects are also on some of the wall portions, and I don't know, it's just really cool, and I don't ever remember seeing it in WoW before. If you know of another area that has this whole, like, rainbow shimmer effect, let me know, because I don't ever remember seeing that particular effect before. But evidently this is where the Divine Bell was housed, and the Divine Bell is the bell that ended up breaking pretty much every bone in Anduin's body back when he was in Pandaria, which led him to recuperating at the Tavern in the Mists and spending a lot of time making friends with Wrathion. So I thought that was kind of cool. Alright, moving on from the ruins, we are going to be heading over to the Coda base camp, which is where the Grummies have the very end of their little burlap trail, which, if you have not done that quest chain, it's so worth it. It's funny. But the Coda base camp is also kind of fun because it is the home of yet another World of Warcraft poop quest. I mean, it's WoW. Every expansion, I think, has to have at least one poop quest, and this poop quest takes place up on the Coda Peak, where you are charged with marking the goat droppings because they've been eating the Coda berries, which it makes them a little bit aggressive, it makes them a little bit Coda crazed, but these berries evidently make the world's, or at least Azeroth's, best coffee. They're also having a little bit of an issue with the Coda crazed Yetis, but you get yourself a whole bunch of Coda berries and you take them to a big Yeti who has an interesting bow on her head. You feed her the Coda berries and she helps you take out the Hosen, who are causing our poor Grummy friends a lot of grief as they travel the Burlap Trail. So I thought that was fun. Also, very near the Serpent's Spine is Firebow Nook. Firebow Nook was a little Pandaren settlement that was right there near Kun Lai Summit, and that is where the Shah of Anger infested the nearby Yangol, and it utterly destroyed the village. Speaking of the Shah of Anger, his spawn point is also very close to here. You can tell that you're at the Shah of Anger spawn point because when you get to it, the edges of the screen kind of turn a pretty red color, just to let you know you were there. The nearby Yangol here at the fire camps they're having a lot of issues. I don't think they deal with the Shah of Anger nearly as well, but you have a lot of different quests for both Westwind Reach, I'm assuming probably Eastwind Reach, which is the Horde camp, that is dealing with a lot of the Yangol. And there are, I think, 3 fire camps, and you have to deal with the Blaze Casters, Ember Callers, Fire Speakers, and Pyromancers there. It's like all of them, they have mobile oil derricks, and they are, I do remember, kind of a pain in the rear if you're doing it at low level. Speaking of the Shah of Anger, this is his spawn point, and, you know, the screen goes red to let you know he's there. I have never personally managed to get the mount off of the Shah of Anger, but I've killed him many times. Also, I love the tumbleweeds that are tumbling across the plains here. They make me smile, even though tumbleweeds are a terrible thing. I didn't realize that Beryl has not quested through here, so I can't show you Westwind Reach at its best, but we will stop in there and at least wave at the burned out camp. If you do the questing, it becomes a beautiful camp. It is under the command of Admiral Taylor, who we will talk about when we get to Draenor, and his story a little bit later. So next on the agenda is dealing with the Hosen. We have the Broke-Tooth Camp, we have Knuckle Thump Hole, and we also have the Duker Dome. The Knuckle Thump Hole is the home of the Knuckle Thump Hosen, and they are plaguing our poor grummy friends. You help guard the caravans, and along the way, you also help here at the Duker Dome by rescuing some of the grummies, giving them their grummy packs back, because evidently a grummy without a grummy pack is just not a happy grummy. And then later on, you also help to distract this Yeti by leading in a yak, and well, the Mr. Chomp Chomp there is distracted. You kill the Hosen Chief, which the grummies hope will stop him from bothering them. Considering it's still going, I don't think it worked. The other really cool thing about Kun Lai Summit is it is home to the tallest mountains in Azeroth, including this one, which is the tallest peak in all of Azeroth, Mount Neverest, obviously named for Mount Everest. And at the peak of Mount Neverest, you can find a statue that is dedicated to Ren-Yun the Blind. He is the father of the individual sensory beers and the four senses brew. Evidently, he was blind, his senses were heightened by his blindness, and he didn't like the local brew, so he made a bunch of his own. Descending from the peak, you can meet up with Lorewalker Cho at the Seeker's Point. He is up there just kind of chilling out, but to get to him is kind of a pain if you don't have a flying mount, because you have to go through Seeker's Folly. It's got whirlwinds, it's got snowballs that hit you. I remember doing this without a flying mount, and it took me a very long time. Now, just like Mount Everest, we also have the Neverest Base Camp here. It is near One Keg, which we will look at next week, and it is the trailhead of Seeker's Folly. Now, we have a couple more stops before we finish off our tour for this week, and the first place we are going to head is, I am going to pronounce this wrong, Mogugia. It is found between Eastwind and Westwind Rest in the Yangle Advance, and Mogugia roughly translates as home of the Mogu. And that is because the Mogu actually were some of the first settlers in Pandaria itself. In fact, the Pandaren didn't really settle this area. They were brought in as slaves. I was reading this on Wowipedia, so if I'm wrong, then we need to all yell at Wowipedia. But the Pandaren, who were constructs of the Titans, actually inhabited this area before being infected by the Shah, from what I understand. Could be wrong, though. But the Pandaren eventually rebelled against the Mogu because they were harsh slave masters, and after a while, they fought their way free. They also fought the Zandalari, and even though the Mogu kind of remain, they aren't quite as big of a deal. At least they weren't until the Horde and Alliance came. The last spot we're going to look at is the Gate of the August Celestials. It is on the southern border, and it is the gate into the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. The quest chain to open that gate actually takes place starting in the Temple of the White Tiger, and I'm ashamed to say it's a quest chain I've actually never completed. I need to one of these days. So that is it for this week. Next week we're going to take a look at the eastern half of Kun Lai Summit, which is the half I mostly know a little bit better, mostly because of Binan Village. So thank you so much for watching this. Please do leave me a thumbs up if you don't mind, and I will see you next week.